Good afternoon, everyone. To everyone watching, everybody that could join us in person. Let me first say congratulations to all of you for being a semifinalist for a prize that finally is celebrating what's the most noble occupation there is, and that's educating our youth and educating those for the future. I also want to say thank you for choosing greatness. Sometimes we think greatness is somebody who's born, or it's somebody who's on TV, or it's the athlete, but ultimately it's a choice we make every day. And when you made a choice to try to change the trajectory of the world through our youth, you chose greatness. And so I'm just very humbled to be able to sit here and have a conversation with people that made that choice. As we get into our first question, what I want you to think about, and I'm going to give you a chance to tell us a little bit about your organization, especially for people out there that may not know, is there is this desire for something that looks different out there. COVID certainly pushed that forward, but it's always been there. Microschools, learning pods. And as that desire and demand gets to be more and more, how do you make sure you still personalize the learning experience for those kids you have in front of you so it doesn't become a factory model that we're trying to get rid of in this country? So Jason Bransford, CEO, GEM Innovation Schools, blended model of learning. Love your focus on competencies, success in college, and I love the term learning societies that you use in your organization. Tell us about you.
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, as the pandemic was raging, as we looked across the country, we found that there was a growing number of microschools around the country. And one of the things that we wrestled with, we operate a charter management organization across the state of Idaho, and we had 7 schools, but those schools were 500-600 students apiece. And we started wondering, is there a way to take the lessons that are being learned in microschools across the country and combine that with some of the concepts that have worked really well with our students? For example, one of the concepts that we believe deeply in is this idea of earned autonomy. Some people, it's a version of mastery. And the idea is if a student's doing well and they're showing strong academic growth, can we grant them some flexibility that they're probably not granted in the traditional school system? For example, scheduling flexibility. So we open these learning societies, these microschools, we open these in smaller communities across our state. And one of the things that people came to us and said was, is there a way that my child could maybe go to school 3 or 4 days a week and not 5 days a week? And we said, this actually may be a good idea, but we believe it's something that should be earned, not something that's universal. And so if a student's doing well academically, making strong progress, we'll work with them on the scheduling flexibility that their family desires. And we think there's a growing number of people. There's a bridge being built right now. And we have focused on the moniker before the word school for so long. We said private school, traditional school, homeschool, whatever. And there's bridges being built right now between those that say families actually aren't so concerned about the moniker before the word school as they are about getting their children the best education that they can possibly get in a way that works well for their family. And so if they can learn from home 1 or 2 or 3 days a week and be highly successful coming to a physical location 1 or 2 or 3 days a week, then we'll work with them on that. So when we first opened these learning societies, students were coming from some schools that had really struggled. None of our students were eligible for earned autonomy day one. Today, a year and a half later, 1/3 of our students have earned the autonomy and the flexibility to attend school on a schedule that works for them and their family. And so that's some of the ways that we try to work with students individually to make sure that they are getting the help and support they need if they need additional help and support. But if they've earned the additional flexibility, grant them some flexibility and work with them to do something that works really well for their family.
Yeah, I love hearing that, and I hope others out there really heard that, and especially for somebody who's a public school person. Flexibility must be a fundamental building block in our schools, and we have to reimagine where learning can take place. Love that. Josh Herring, tons of different roles. Admin, teacher, currently a dean at the Thales Academy. You guys focus a lot on a classical curriculum. I love the Thales Press. You're actually creating your materials in real time, so it links to what's going on in the world. Tell us about your organization. How do you keep personalizing that experience?
Thank you, Dr. Steiner. That's a great question. So my name is Josh Herring. I'm with Thales Academy. I love my school and always love getting to share that with other people. Thales Academy is a network of private classical schools. When I joined Thales Academy 11 years ago, we had 3 campuses. Today we have 13 campuses and we have 12 more in development. So the question that you're asking is always key for us. How do we continue to grow? How do we help meet the educational needs of families? And yet how do we also recognize that each student is an individual, that each person has unique needs and has great potential that we don't really know the fullness of that potential. So how do we help each child do that? We do that first and foremost by holding every student to high behavior expectations. We have a very clearly written out set of expectations, and then we have a behavior management process that we work with students as we go through. So one of the things I learned when I got onto the administrative side is that it's on the teacher side, it's very straightforward. You do this, here's the consequence. On the administrator side, if it gets to the principal's office, it then becomes a conversation. What is happening such that you are not being successful here? And there are times when we reach a point where we have to tell families, there's another school in our area that is a better fit for you. But we get to that point after a long series of conversations to try and figure out how can we figure out how to make this successful. The other piece that we do is really, and this gets to the part of the classical approach of our curriculum. We believe that there are parts of the academics that every student needs to understand, and we want every student to really grow to the best of his or her ability. And we recognize that certain students are going to have great aptitude in math and science and literature and history and languages. We want to help those students go as far as their natural gifts will take them. But we also recognize that every student needs a basic foundation, that all of these kinds of knowledge are necessary for success. A third piece that we really focus on is really the moral character. We believe that every student needs to learn to live a life of strong work ethic, of integrity, of honesty, of learning the habits that lead to long-term success in community. So we focus on all of that within our classrooms, on our teams, and our clubs, really to build a culture where every student can see his or her route to success. So we're a big school, we're a big network of schools, and yet we have at our core a recognition that every person is a priceless, unrepeatable person. And we need to help each person develop all of the potential within him or herself.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that you're taking into account what's the contributing impact our learners will have on our community. Again, another core principle we need to bring back into our schools. So thank you so much. Dominique, founder and head of schools, Burbrella Learning Academy, a microschool, hands-on, experiential learning, a ton of STEAM, 16 states if I'm correct. Tell us, how do you keep it personalized with the growth and the demand you're seeing?
Well, first I'll add in that we're in 18 states now,
18
which is
states.
huge.
All right.
But we personalize learning in various ways. One of the things that I would highlight is our personalized learning plans. There's this big scare in the world that IEPs is a scary thing, even down to parents. We create personalized learning plans for every child because that is a need. No matter if you have a disability or if you're gifted and talented, we want our students to, one, be empowered within themselves. So creating this plan that highlights what you can do, not what you can't do, empowers them to do marvelous things in our classrooms. And then we also use the Woodcock-Johnson and iReady assessments, which is supposed to be the nation's top with personalizing education. So we take that data, we take our observations, and we create these marvelous plans for our students, and we let them go. And in doing that both virtually and in person, we have seen parents get excited about learning. We've seen students get excited about learning because they feel more connected to what they're being taught.
Awesome. So I'm hearing that there are still kids that get excited about learning and families that get excited about learning. I love the fact that that's what it should be. It's that way when they're younger, we can keep that and maintain that. So thank you. Ayana Verdi, co-founder and executive director of Verdi EcoSchool. Love the 12 big ideas and the competencies. That is brilliant. Love that part. Place-based, mixed age, and you have a huge piece on reflection and self-assessment in there. How do you keep personalizing and do all the things you're trying to do?
Yes, thank you for that introduction. Ayana Verdi, founder of Verdi EcoSchool, the first place and project-based urban farm school in the southeastern United States. Our students use the community as a campus to acknowledge that learning doesn't just happen inside of a classroom within the four walls. We're making connections everywhere all the time. I'm learning now. And so we're instilling that value in our students as well. Reflection is a really, really big part of learning. The time that we took as founders, as leaders, to step back and say, oh my goodness, have you met some of the people in this room? That reflection enriches each of us, and we want that practice to be instilled in our students. Our students are proposing businesses. Our students are working with advisors based on their passions and interests, not ours, because we want our kids to be excited. We want them to be joyful learners, walking into school each day saying, I can do this. Someone's listening to me. And maybe my teacher, my educator, my parent will listen to me when I say, I've got this really great idea for something new. We follow our kids. And every personalized trajectory says a really, really important part is to stop and say, what did you learn? Did you fail? What can you use from that failure to inform the next success? And then we follow them and we see where they go.
Awesome. I love it. Failure is opportunity, and that needs to be built into our learners. Just wonderful. Jim Donahue, CEO of Old Sturbridge Academy, co-located in a museum, experiential learning, using that rich history of your state, farms, gardens, kilns, nature trails. I want to go back to school. I want to be in that school. So how do you keep personalizing in the model that you have?
No, it's a great question, Cory. And so again, I am Jim Donahue, and I'm the CEO of Old Sturbridge Academy, but I'm also the CEO of Old Sturbridge Village, the museum where the academy is located. So at Old Sturbridge Academy, we focus on really 3 dimensions of personalization that we think are important. You know, the first is experiential education. So we want to be able to provide lots of experiences for our students inside the museum. Museums that are done well, and I like to think we do it well, are deeply personal experiences for our visitors, right? We are the collectors of the objects and the stories that define our civilization, right? And so we want people to be connecting to those objects and to those stories and relating them to their lives today. And so at the Academy, a key part of our program is a program called Learning Through Experience and Learning Through Project, where students are working in the museum every day as part of their curriculum. So that's the first piece of the personalization. We can see what their interests are, expose them to things they might not be exposed of in a traditional school, and then build academic programming around those interests and passions. The second really important piece of personalization for us, and something I really believe in, is exposure to experts. So our students are surrounded by professionals who work in fields that they love and in which they're highly skilled. Whether they're potters working at the kiln, or blacksmiths, or carpenters, or people working in our marketing department, and each of these individuals is providing structured programming for students. So students have an opportunity to work not only with a dedicated teaching staff, but also with experts in the museum. And the last piece I think that's really important for us, Cory, is choice. So as students go through the program, and we're a small kindergarten through 8th grade public charter school, 360 students, we try to give students choice based on what they've already been exposed to at the museum, and we try to give them opportunities to work in smaller groups, in deeper projects with an expert who hopefully will become a mentor. And so those are really the 3 dimensions of our program that I think lead to the most personalization.
Yeah, I love the idea that kids can make choices. They really can. Our job is to help them understand when their choices are hurting or helping them learning, so I love that. Dominique, next question, I'm going to start with you, is for the people out there watching, let's say they wanted to connect. It's a tough question, but what is the one thing you would say, in our model, this is what every model needs to do? What's the one thing that you kind of hang your hat on that should be in any school, any learning model that's out there?
I would say talk with kids, not at kids. And that is the key to any successful classroom. We spend a lot of time in front of kids telling them things, not monitoring how they retain it, how they use it, or how they apply it inside and outside of the classroom. So in micro schools, we get to guide learning, we get to coach kids. Small group instruction happens in most schools, that's what they say, right? So use that ability to talk with kids, learn with kids, collaborate with kids, and watch what happens.
I love that. The biggest issue we have, I think, in a lot of organizations is we talk to kids, but we don't do anything with what they tell us. We need to start doing something with that information. How about from your side, Josh? What is the one thing you would take?
Sure. I'm going to cheat just a little bit, and I'm going to mention 2 things. Okay. The piece that is the case across every Thales Academy that I think is really could be shared with really everybody is really have your core set of values worked out as a school such that those are present in every classroom. For us, we call those the Thales outcomes. They're a set of 15 principles that are worked into everything we do. The first one is unfailing integrity, because we want all of our students, no matter where life takes them, they need to be people of unfailing integrity. That for us is the definition of success. Second thing, just on a sort of our secret sauce that we don't think is terribly secret, we want to give this away to as many schools as possible, is that we found that if we have the right people in administrative leadership, we can have a school of between 400 and 700 students with only 3 people on administration, which means there's an enormous amount of organizational and cost savings that can be spread out to other needs in the school community. So it is entirely possible to run schools with fewer administrative personnel than really most people in the private education space have ever thought possible.
Yeah, that probably hurts my administrator heart a little bit, but it's very true. It's absolutely 100% true. We need people closer to the learners.
And that's with the right people in administrative leadership.
Correct. Jason, how about from you?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I would advise is that students need to develop certain competencies to accomplish the thing that schools are setting out to accomplish. And so in order to do that, you've really got to wrestle with when will they actually get a chance to practice this competency. So for example, if you think about a traditional high school where students ages 14 to 18 are micromanaged every minute of every day, that does not replicate the real world experience and prepares them for very little that they'll experience after high school. So you've got to start wrestling with how will we help them develop the competencies that will actually help them succeed post-high school. So it might be taking online classes. For example, depending on which report you read and when it was written, somewhere between half and 2/3 of employees around the country today work from home 1 or more days per week. So the ability to access learning and collaboration with people who aren't physically in the same space as you may actually be a really valuable skill. The opportunity to manage their time and decide when they're going to learn, how they're going to learn, where they're going to learn, if they're going to work individually or work with other groups of students are really important skills for them to learn now, not the day they step foot in a college or the day they step foot into a workplace and have to figure out what ways actually lead me to success. And so helping students have a time and space to work on and practice those competencies that are going to lead them to success, I think is a critical component of what we do.
Yeah, and I love the idea of like practice those skills, not redo every math problem, not diagram the sentence. Practice the skills that when they leave our buildings, they will need on day one. Love that. Ayana, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's most important about our model is our recognition of place as the most vital thing in education. So what's unique to my community, what's unique to Melbourne, Florida, is not the same as what's unique to Brooklyn, New York. And we can't teach those groups of students and show up for those families in the exact same way. So we need to acknowledge that schools need to be place-based. And if we're sharing something from a model, from a microschool model, from a small community school model, it's that large schools can collaborate with us. We can be nimble laboratories to show you what we're doing in real time, and you can take it with you and use it. Here, we want to share because we're serving the same children in our community. And it only works if we're all collaborating collectively together to say, hey, all of these kids are going to grow up and be working together. They should probably all know how to do that. They should probably all understand that one size does not fit all in education. It's impossible. Every child is different. So why are we treating them the same? If we could, we would say, look at your micro schools, look at your small schools, look at your leaders who are willing to step outside of the box and try the thing that you would never touch. Because that thing will be the next innovation that saves the lives of your children.
Write it down, nimble laboratories. It's a beautiful statement, beautiful phrase, nimble laboratories. Jim, a few seconds left, bring us home. What's the thing you would say?
So I would agree with all of my distinguished colleagues on this panel with everything that they said. I would only add, for me personally, I'm on a mission to convince every other museum in New England that I can convince to take down the red velvet rope that stands between most students who are there on a field trip and their collection, and go from field trip to field experience, so that these museums become public locations where our students feel a connection, where our students connect their experience there to their own academic development, where they feel included and where they feel welcome. So if more schools can tear down the walls to some of our museums, I'd be very happy.
Thank you. It is an honor to work with such beautiful and remarkable human beings. So thank you, and give this panel a big round of applause.